When is the appropriate time to heat? Because I've always been very confused on this. I know before practice, sometimes I like to heat. Does it help during practice as well to maybe get a hot pack and kind of put it on somewhere that you feel a niggle or somewhere that's hurting?
To be honest, putting the heat on where it's actually hurting might be counterproductive. You often want to keep the bits warm that are the muscles that are acting on that particular joint. So if it was your knee, for example, it might be a mid-thigh or mid-hamstring, but quite a way away from the actual joint, because you want to make the muscles protect your body. Yeah, so muscles are there for power, yeah, and all the other things you need for the sport, but they're also there to protect you. And if they are actually in a state of cramp or spasm or shortened or tired or fatigued, the blood flow is reduced. And as a result, if you stimulate blood flow, you make the muscle work more efficiently. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of something to think about when it comes to, to balancing out that heat and the application of ice. But certainly heat is really good at calming muscle cramps down and increasing blood flow. So that's something perhaps for after the game. Some people do like to wrap or use something around the muscle to keep it warm whilst you're actually, while you're actually training. And that just keeps that heat in to that area of the body that may be a bit vulnerable, and particularly the muscle going into cramp.
Okay.
So I think the watchword with all this is, if that's happening, you need to consider why that is, and that will be the thing to do in remedial looking at it, not just keep waiting for it to go wrong and put heat on all the time, because it says something isn't working right with your training, or something that where you're carrying an injury. And I think that's it's not to make you paranoid about it, but it means something's going on that isn't working properly.
Right, which is, I think, what athletes tend not to do. I think we mainly focus on, we need to just play, we need to just get onto the court. So we try to take these shortcuts to make that happen. And then maybe at the end of the season, we're kind of like, oh, you know what, for the whole season, let's say my Achilles has been hurting, and throughout the season, we've never thought what is actually the reason why this is happening. So I think that's a great point to kind of take away from this as well.
It might be worth just throwing in a question, I suppose, that the big fear about being told there's an injury is what in an athlete's mind?
Yeah, you've got to sit out. You've got to wait. You've got to take time out.
So sitting out and not playing. But sometimes a little bit of time out at the right time ahead of time might save you a lot more time out later. So I think some of the points we're talking about today, is, I know the fear is being sat out and not competing or not performing. So that is always the big fear. But having a frank conversation that gives you that detailed information, I think, to be fair, might maximize your potential, because you're actually acting upon it before, things turn to the point where you really have to take time out.
Exactly, because I know from my experience, every time I've gone to a physio and said this is hurting, the result is sit out for 2 weeks. And in my head, I feel like there's a disconnection between the coach and I. So whereas the coach obviously wants me on the court, whereas I want what's best for myself as well as when I am back to play. So I know that some athletes find it hard to kind of continue where they're at after sitting out for about 2 weeks. So I know I've done it plenty of times, and it actually has made more damage, and I've had to sit out a whole half of a season, let's say, because I didn't want to sit out for 2 weeks.
I think sometimes not getting it checked doesn't mean there's more damage, but your body's getting out of condition, your muscles are tightening, and the balance, that fine flow that you've developed, is being destroyed. That balance where the way the muscles are firing, the chain reaction, if you like, the activation sequence in the muscles is being lost. And with something where there's accuracy involved, like, shooting the ball, for example, particularly, or where there's some other accuracy involved in the sport, that's where you can get that chain that gets broken down, and that actually kind of really changes the way your whole body integrates with performing at a high level, and accuracy particularly. So I think the thing about timeouts is rest on its own without really understanding what the problem is or having an accurate diagnosis doesn't actually help the situation, because you're losing fitness. And actually, you're not necessarily fixing those imbalances that have caused the injury or the timeout. So, it's frustrating, I know. And I think erring on the side of caution, if people aren't certain when they get their professional to look at them, they will tend to say, sit out, because, of course, quite often that might relieve the symptoms. But to me, that's a little bit of a soft touch approach to really understanding the athlete's needs and problems.